Having a career as a filmmaker is anything but straightforward. I believe that unlike other, much simpler career choices, being a filmmaker has an infinite number of paths that lead to both success and failure. Mind you, there's no guarantee of success in any career that you choose to pursue, but at the very least, you will likely have consistent work with a set-in-stone schedule and reliable income. But the thing about filmmaking is that it doesn't really have any of those things, unless of course you're already working on a production. What a lot of people don't understand is that filmmaking is the largest freelance business in the world, one that takes and gives so much to devoted artists that when you look at it for what it really is, you realize that it's not really a job at all, and it's actually a lifestyle. But let's say you've decided that that's a lifestyle you're willing to have. Let's say that you truly do want to be a filmmaker. The first decision you have to make is whether you should or should not go to film school. Being a former film student myself, I'm confident I can help you come to a conclusion. Whether you're a high school senior who's still trying to make up their mind before the end of the school year, or a fully grown adult looking to start a new career, this is the right video for you. That being said, film school has its pros and cons like anything else. So to understand if film school is the right move for you, we're going to take a look at what film school has to offer as well as what it doesn't have to offer. Starting off with something I believe that a lot of young filmmakers are guilty of, myself included at one point, and that is the idea that we know it all. A lot of people think that because they know how to examine movies and dissect scenes and know lots of movie trivia that they've got this filmmaking thing in the bag. Little do they know that there's more to filmmaking than knowing that Viggo Mortensen broke his toes while filming Lord of the Rings and knowing that Marlon Brando didn't memorize his lines for The Godfather. Is that how you say his name? Let me look that up real quick.
2 hours later.
Viggo Mortensen.
Okay. I distinctly remember one particular quote from my film professor, and it's something that has stuck with me ever since I heard it. And the quote is, "Film is a language that everyone can understand." The reason that stuck with me is because at that moment, I realized filmmaking is not something that anyone has ever truly mastered. There's definitely geniuses in the field, and there's certainly people that are ahead of me, but I don't think anyone has truly mastered the art of film because, like any other language, film is ever evolving. You can definitely be ahead of other people, but by definition, being a master of something means that you've learned all there is to learn from it. By its very nature, filmmaking just doesn't fit that mold. So whether you do or don't go to film school, you need to let go of the belief that you know every little thing about this craft, because I can promise you, no matter who you are or what you've done, you don't. But then that begs the question, what do you actually learn in film school? In my case, quite a bit surprisingly. Before I went to film school, I was dead set on acting. I didn't want to do anything else except be an actor because nothing really interested me as much. But I later realized that the reason I wasn't interested in learning anything else was because my passion for acting kind of gave me tunnel vision. I thought that by going all in on this one skill and ignoring everything else, that it would somehow amount to me being a legitimate storyteller. As ashamed as I am to admit it, in hindsight, I was a bit cocky in that regard, and wasn't as respectful of the process as I should have been. Thankfully, I ended up learning so much about other areas of filmmaking that I wound up finding to be pretty interesting. Granted, I don't use every single one of these lessons every time I'm on a film set because I, like all other filmmakers, have my strengths and weaknesses. But for everything I can't do on a film set, there's a lot of things that I can very confidently do. If there's an upcoming production now, I have several skills that could increase my chances of getting a job on that set, all of which I learned in film school. I can do acting, writing, directing, editing, location scouting, production assistant, gaffer, casting department, crafty, and even producing. All this to say, I learned a lot, and with the right mindset, you will too. However, filmmaking is still a business, but don't worry, because when I tell you that the business side of film is as straight as an arrow and simple to understand, I'm not telling you the truth. I'm not being truthful. The business side of film is about as straightforward as a hedge maze. It doesn't matter what technical or creative skills you have. If you don't have any connections, you're not going to get very far. The way I see it, film school is a great way to make those connections because you're bound to be classmates with at least one person from each area of film. There are, of course, other ways to get connections as well, like checking out upcoming events for your local film scene, connecting with filmmakers via social media, etc. But you're still the new kid in this scenario, and no matter how prestigious or underground your local film scene is, you're gonna have to work to prove yourself just like the people who came before you did. In many ways, film school fixes that problem because the connections you need to make are literally sitting right next to you every day. You are in a room filled with people whose interests could align with yours. As an added bonus, it's not just your classmates that can be a potential connection for you to make. There's also your professors. A lot of the time, film professors are legitimate filmmakers and sometimes are even working on a production whilst being a film professor. But, for the love of Christ, please do not use this knowledge as an excuse to be a kiss-ass. Despite popular belief, the vast majority of serious people in the world of film are not looking for a yes man. I promise you, you are not doing yourself any favors by agreeing with every little thing your professor says. Film professors want to know that you're serious, but also know that you have your own ideas and are easy to work with. You can make yourself useful without being an annoying tryhard that wants to look like the star student. That's not a good look to have, whether it's coming from your professor or, arguably worse, your classmates, as no one wants to work with someone who's only trying to further their own agenda. Filmmaking is a team effort, after all. At this point, it's up to you to play film politics, but that's a video for another day. Having this outlook on being a film student will also help you when it's time for you to learn about business strategies that help your film get made, with things like funding, marketing, and professionally pitching your film. It may be nerve-wracking at first, but seeing your film get made makes the politics and business process all the more rewarding, especially because it gives you physical proof that you can show to producers that you can get results. Really, that's what they're looking for. They want to know that you take this job seriously and are someone who is truly committed to telling a story. I didn't just kind of mean it when I said that filmmaking is a lifestyle. No, I really do mean that. In every sense of the word, being a filmmaker is its own lifestyle. This is important to understand because in a professional setting, you're going to be on set for a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day for 5, sometimes 6 days a week, if you're lucky. But since it's filmmaking and anything that can go wrong most definitely will, you're probably looking really at 12 to 14-hour days. And if it's a really tough shoot, you're looking at possibly 18-hour days. Which is great if you're a psychopath like me who lives and breathes for this process, but not so great if you're someone whose heart just isn't in it, and you're just looking to make some money and not have your work interfere with your home life. This is where we get into why film school, possibly film in general, isn't always a good fit for people. Starting off with the most obvious drawback, the insane amounts of debt. College, at least in the United States, has never been cheap, and film school is no exception. Fortunately, there are programs out there that can help you minimize that debt as much as possible. And even though you probably won't start paying until after you've already graduated, it's still thousands upon thousands of dollars, so just something to keep in mind. Since we're on the topic of money, unless you're part of the less than 1% of the cosmically lucky film students that can get access to grants, you will more than likely be financing your own films. Your school will be able to provide you with the bare minimum in terms of equipment, like cameras, tripods, rigs, lights, and maybe even an editing space if you utilize your school's computers with the pre-installed industry standard editing softwares they have on them, like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro. However, most film schools suffer from having outdated equipment that, even though it gets the job done, it forces you to come to terms with the fact that maybe your vision isn't going to turn out exactly like how you thought it would. Now that's not to say that the equipment is going to be bad. DSLR cameras are commonly used in college film programs and offer great quality, a wide variety of lenses, and are fairly easy to learn how to use. Just temper your expectations and don't expect to be working with multi-million-dollar cameras. That said, with the right camera operator, everything will be fine. Once you've taken all this into account and got everything you can from your school, you're pretty much on your own for everything else. That includes costumes, props, locations, food for your cast and crew, pretty much anything else that a production would need. On one hand, this is a good thing, because working with limitations will ultimately force you to use that filmmaker brain of yours to find creative solutions to whatever issues your production may be facing. On the other hand, being a college student having to spend what little money you have on class assignments may be a bit draining. It's at this point you'll realize that ramen noodles or Chef Boyardee for dinner isn't just a cliche anymore. And don't think, even for one moment, that just because you're not the director or producer means you can just sit back and let the people with those titles do all the heavy lifting. No. That's not how that works here. You're all newbies, so you all have to work together to iron out the details. Once everything is in order and production can start, then you can worry about only having to do your designated job. But until then, it's all hands on deck, which can be challenging if it's something you're not used to. But no matter what, that's just the name of the game. This isn't the only challenge you'll be facing in the classroom either. Like I said, it is true that many film professors are actual filmmakers who are working on a production whilst being your professor, but not all of them are. Some film professors aren't filmmakers at all. In fact, you're probably going to have a professor or two that makes you question if they've ever even seen a movie in their entire life. In some cases, it's hard to even call them professors if the only teaching they ever do is showing YouTube videos about filmmaking. There isn't anything inherently wrong with your professor showing YouTube videos in class, so long as it's to give you a general idea of what the lessons are about. But there are some film professors that only ever show YouTube videos to cover up the fact that they're not the right professor for the class. This sucks if you're really passionate about film and genuinely want to learn more, but you're stuck with a professor who probably somehow knows less than you do. My advice to you is look up reviews on all your professors on websites like ratemyprofessors.com before you start their classes. You'd probably be able to get the same credit from a different class that hopefully has a better professor, and if you can't, well, if nothing else, you could at least be prepared for what's to come. But arguably the biggest factor that gives people second thoughts about going to film school is that, unlike when it comes to being a doctor or lawyer or a teacher, you don't need to go to film school at all to become a successful filmmaker. And that's not just for the creative parts of the process. With maybe a couple of minor exceptions on the business side of things, there isn't really an area of the filmmaking world that necessarily requires a college education. It certainly does help as being something to put on your resume, but the most you'll get from people who you want to get hired by is a resounding, "Oh, they went to film school. Cool." There's also been several high-profile directors that either dropped out of film school or never went to begin with and still ended up having an illustrious career. People like James Cameron, Wes Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, and even Steven Spielberg are just a few people who have done very well for themselves despite their lack of attendance in a film school. This is usually where the discussion ends for a lot of people because if it's not necessary, then why even bother? Well, there is a few things to take into consideration. I think you have to seriously think about what you deem to be as necessary to achieve your personal goals in the world of film. When people say that film school isn't necessary, they only really mean that, whether they know it or not, in the legal sense. Because like I said, film isn't like other careers where you have to have proof of an education to get a job in it. But is it necessary on a personal level? Well, that depends on you. If you don't know anyone in the world of film and are okay with starting off on a completely blank slate with no connections of any kind, or you don't mind having to buy or rent all your own equipment, then yeah, maybe you can skip film school. But whether you want to go or not, I believe that the one thing about film school that is objectively true is that it does make some things in your filmmaking journey easier. Which does go a long way in an industry like this one. Keep in mind, my perspective is only based on my own personal experiences, and what worked for me may or may not work for you. But if you were to ask me, then I would personally say that I don't regret going to film school at all. I made lots of connections, learned a lot of new skills, and most importantly, my love for motion pictures grew while I was there and continues to grow to this day in part because of my experiences as a film student. With all the new skills I attained, I also learned to appreciate and even respect the other areas of film that weren't acting. It made me realize that the process is bigger than me, and that got me excited for the long hours of working on a film set with like-minded artists trying to tell a great story. Was it easy? definitely not. There were days where I couldn't wait to be at my next film class and learn something that I didn't know anything about. And then there were other days where I wanted to rip the hairs out of my head and question what I was even doing there.
What the fuck are you?
And you know something? That's the story of being an artist. But if you can manage to get in and see it through to the end, then I think you'll be alright. It may not be an easy or conventional experience, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. In an unorthodox move, Spielberg himself actually went back to film school more than 30 years after he initially dropped out, and even got his bachelor's in 2002 so as to set an example for why education is so important, even if it wasn't entirely necessary for his particular career choice. And because Spielberg is Spielberg, his senior thesis was Schindler's List. Can you imagine being there in that class that day? Like you're sitting there and your professor's like, okay, Steven, we're gonna watch your film first. And they show the movie and it's genuinely Schindler's List. And then the professor's like, okay, Albert, we're gonna watch your film next. And I'd just be like, no, we're not. We're not watching any more films. In all seriousness, if you do go to film school, you have to take it seriously, more than anything you've ever done. If you just kind of want to be a filmmaker or just want to be famous, then I'd say that this definitely isn't the path for you. And also go see a therapist about the obvious attention-starved issues you have. Who wants to be famous? What is that? Seriously, the same way that you wouldn't sign up to become an underwater welder to make a quick $5, don't go to film school. Matter of fact, don't get into the entertainment industry at all if all you want is to be famous. There's other paths for that. But if you get into it because you've got some stories to tell or just love the process, then for better or for worse, I think film school can push you to do just that. Who knows? You might even find that it's one of the single most rewarding uphill battles ever. So to answer the question, is film school worth it?
Oh yeah, it's worth it. If you're strong enough.
But anyways guys, thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment letting me know what you want to see next. But other than that guys, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.